Order, and if we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Steve, if you could help us with the roll call, please.
Sure. Alderperson Saloga.
Here.
Barron.
Here.
Valdy.
Here.
Dean.
Here.
Grimmer.
Here.
Casson. And Eicher.
Here.
And Mayor Atwell.
Present.
And Administrator Hafner.
Here.
Great, thank you much. Okay, we will go to 4A. Special order of business. Police Chief Eric Kale, presentation of the Superior Police Action Award to the Delafield Police Officer Dan Barber for creating a GoFundMe page on his off-duty time to replace a newly purchased vehicle lost in a fire after the new owner drove approximately 4 miles from the place of purchase. Chief, if you want to come on up.
Thank you. I'm not going to read off the commendation I wrote, but this stems from an incident on August 24th this year. Officer Barber responded to a car fire at the Quick Trip on Sun Valley Drive. The owner of the vehicle was a first-generation college accepted student. Scheduled to begin at UWM this fall. He had worked all summer to raise money for tuition. He had some money left over, about $3,200, to buy a used vehicle so he could commute to and from home to school. The fire destroyed the vehicle. It was a total loss. Barber originally attempted to negotiate with the seller to come up with a resolution. That was unsuccessful. So Dan set up a GoFundMe page on his own time, off-duty, to try to make it right for this young man. Ultimately, he raised almost twice the amount the gentleman was out, and that was then presented to him in an event that he organized himself down at Quick Trip.
Oh, I love that.
So the owner of the truck that was destroyed in the fire actually came out above and presumably went and got himself a car that wasn't going to catch on fire. So, this was recommended to our merit review team. They looked at it. They recommended the Superior Police Action Award. I'm very happy to agree with that recommendation. So tonight we are going to give Officer Barber the actual physical award that goes with this. I'm going to say this twice today. This doesn't shock me, knowing Dan the way I do. Dan was actually my first hire as chief. That he would do this for somebody is totally within his character. And having learned that he did this couldn't make me more happy. Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Good job. Thank you.
All right, we will roll into 4B. Police Chief Eric Kale, presentation of Department Challenge Coin to Delafield Police Officer Steve Shruby for placing 2 homeless people in a hotel for a night using his own funds.
This stems from an incident on October 12th. Officer Shruby was very coy about this. I had to do some digging based on the log entry. It was like, so what did you do to help these people out? I responded to a call where there were 2 suspicious people. Turns out they were homeless, living out of their car, which was disabled in one way or another. They were working with a local church to get repairs to the vehicle, but they had nowhere to stay that night. So in a very vaguely worded email, log entry, I cornered him and asked him, did you actually pay to put these people into a hotel for the night? And eventually he admitted that he had. Once again, I think this is very indicative. It doesn't surprise me of Steve, having worked with him also a long time. It doesn't surprise me that he would do this or try to be very nonchalant, like, yeah, don't worry about it. The challenge coin from the department, that is my prerogative to award. Since he was being very careful how he presented this, it didn't get to the merit review team only because I didn't think he really wanted it to. I might be wrong.
So he brought him up here.
So regardless, I am bringing him up here to tell him that his efforts are appreciated. Once again, it doesn't surprise me, but that you would go out of your way to this degree just reflects well on you, and hopefully rubs off a little bit on the department as a whole. So here's the challenge coin. It was redesigned last year, I think, but it's a little nicer than the old one.
All right.
Nicely done.
And here's your paperwork.
All right, and we will move on to 4C. Police Chief Eric Kale will update on the November 6, 2020 police officer shooting incident. Thank you very much.
So, I presume everybody's aware of the excitement on November 6th involving the department. It is still an open investigation, so there's very little detail I can provide. I can tell you that early in the morning on the 6th, we did have 2 officers working third shift. They were dispatched to a hit and run investigation in the area of Holiday Inn. They were in the process of identifying the suspect vehicle and finding people that belonged with it. When another call came in for a man down in a parking lot in an adjacent strip mall. So luckily we already had Shaniqua and Heartland responding to back us up. One of our officers with Shaniqua went to look at the man down. The other one stayed with Heartland with the hit and run. During the course of that investigation, one of the people from the car that was suspected of being involved in the hit and run pulled a handgun and shot both of the officers. After a long day of a manhunt involving several hundred local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, suspect was apprehended without incident, was charged later that night by DA Sue Upper herself, and that's awaiting prosecution. And that's why I can't go into a lot of detail. I can say that I appreciate all the assistance we got that night, or that day, night, day, afternoon, evening. It just went on and on and on. It had gotten to the point where I had almost given up that we were going to find the shooter. I figured enough time had passed that he had gotten out and we were going to get a report of something else happening, like a carjacking, and he had the hostage driving somewhere. So I was thrilled when the opportunity came to tell the media that we had him in custody, or at least we believed we did at the time. Chief Misko from Heartland and I made an agreement right away. We're still keeping the identity of our officers private for their benefit, so they don't start getting trolled on social media. And, believe it or not, there's people that are happy to see cops get hurt. So we don't want them getting that message from those types of people, so I'm not at liberty in this forum to say who the officer was, from Delafield or from Heartland. I also won't comment on the condition of the Heartland officer because he's not one of ours. Chief Misko would deal with that. I can tell you our officer, we were able to get home that night, despite having been shot. We're thrilled about that. I've spoken to him quite a bit since the time of the incident. He's doing very well. In fact, he recently had his first physical therapy appointment, and that went better than he or the therapist expected. So it's just a matter of time till he's physically cleared and mentally, but emotionally ready to come back. But as soon as he is, he will have a spot with us. Very traumatic experience for everyone involved, but good result. We found the guy. He's sitting in Waukesha County Jail, and that'll get dealt with. So if there are questions, I can try to answer them, but once again, I can't do too much in specifics.
Well, I'll just lead by saying that I got to see you on the local news. I know you don't seek out cameras, right? But I know that you represented the community and what was going on in an absolutely top tier way, and you answered direct questions with direct answers, without spin and with an appropriate filter for what couldn't be revealed, and that really made us all proud, and as far as I'm concerned, as far as who we've got as our chief. And you represented your department really, really well, and we're really appreciative of that.
Well, thank you. It was, as Captain Hagan would tell you, there were two choices at that time. Either I went and dealt with media, or I got in my squad and started looking for...
I knew you looked like you had one foot in the car ready to get going as soon as you could. So.
And luckily I have, Captain Hagan, Lieutenant Nyron, Captain Bob could just stay at the command post and manage that end of it for me, so I wasn't just standing around going crazy. And Lieutenant Nyron was able to fill in where I needed him as well.
So do you know off the top of your head where there's a place or a site someone can go to if they want to support the officers that were injured in this?
There are two accounts set up at Waukesha State Bank for financial donations. Once again, we're keeping the officers' names private.
So they could walk into like by Century and just, okay.
Any Waukesha State Bank, and donations can be made there. Cards, we've been getting cards from all over the place, emails. So the members of the department decided that they were going to adopt the officers' families, so every once in a while they run meals out to them. And we have a box of stuff that, people dropped off cards or, a box of cookies, whatever they feel is appropriate, and it all goes up to his family in one trip, every time a meal is taken off.
Great.
So there's, really the support from the community has been almost overwhelming. You kind of live in this bubble where you don't really know if anybody, quite frankly, cares or not. And it's been very, very appreciated, I think, by all
Good.
of us.
Hey, Eric, I think it's important for people to understand why police officers need the equipment that they have. Can you just make a general comment on the importance of the officer's body armor in this case?
Yes. So our officer did not receive a wound that the body armor would have helped with, but I will say that the Heartland officer was shot more than once, and the only reason he's still able to be where he is, which is at home with his family, is because of that body armor. It saved his life, which is the whole point of wearing that stuff every day. Same with all the equipment and the training. I think I said it on the news, so I think I can say it here. Our officer was shot. He returned fire on the suspect. And that doesn't happen just because you own a gun. That happens because of training and experience and everything that goes into becoming a professional police officer. Very proud when I heard that he was shot and returned fire. It's real easy to say, I got shot, I'm supposed to lay on the ground, that's what happens in the movies. But to fight through it and be back in the fight and oppose somebody who's trying to kill you takes a lot. So my hat's off to both the officers. And, the body camera, which is an expense, we have the entire thing on video, which is going to be wonderful come prosecution in court, because the suspect has already put in a not guilty plea. And yet we're going to be able to flash his face up on the screen somewhere, pulling a gun.
As I believe you've said many times, that the camera is more for the officer than it is for the suspect, right? That they're really the ones that often benefit most from that.
And in this one, it's both. We're going to be able to hold somebody accountable for doing a terrible thing, I believe, in court when everything is said and done, based partially on that documentation that if we didn't have, it wouldn't exist.
Well, it was a surreal day. from just getting up in the morning and, but it was very comforting to know. I watched the television interview and I actually went out in my car and just like looked, and I could see like things were marked and, you know, keeping people away, and, you know, called a couple neighbors, a couple elderly neighbors who were working in their yard. I'm like, really don't want to be out there. But it was very comforting, and I have to say not at all surprising at the quality and the level at which, the proactive level at which, and the degree to which everybody moved, you and all the officers, like you said, from us, local, county, state, fed. It was astonishingly fast. So thank you.
And that's what I would credit our partners. When the original shots fired call came out, dispatch took it on their own to call the emergency code. We generally, law enforcement, flooded that area, which is why he didn't get any further. He didn't have a chance. He was pretty well pinned down. Yeah, if he knew where he was and he was more comfortable moving in that type of landscape, there were places he could have gotten away from.
Yeah.
But he wasn't, and we were there.
Right.
I can tell you, when I rolled up, I was only there a short period of time when I think a lieutenant from State Patrol, I can't remember, lieutenant or sergeant walks up, and they're all spit and polished with the hat and the shiny shoes. And I got sir, I've got 12 troopers here, where do you want us? 12 troopers, where did you find 12 troopers at one time? You know, basically they emptied southeastern Wisconsin with everybody who wasn't already working and bought it.
It was impressive, very
Short time
impressive.
after that, all the tactical teams are there. There's an older cop standing not too far away from me, so I'm checking out patches. You know, who's all here? There's everybody is here. And I've told this story a lot, but it meant a lot to me at the time, and I have a hard time not telling it. So I'm looking at his patch. It was somebody from the Marshal Service, the Joint Fugitive Task Force. I don't know where they came from. I don't know how they got there that quick. But knowing that somebody that's their job was there waiting to help was like, oh, this guy doesn't have a chance. I've never seen so many cops in one place. It was impressive. And everybody was on page. There was no nonsense going on. It was reassuring.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will just reiterate that because after I'd gotten the message, on my phone in the morning, I pulled out the scanner and just to listen to everything that was happening. It was like clockwork as much as it could be. It was quite impressive. So just listening to it on the police scanner was quite impressive.
Is your mic on? It doesn't sound like it's on.
It's on the side.
I'm done.
There you go.
It was impressive.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we will roll into item number 5, citizens' comments. Who would like to be first? All right, come on up. Yep, we're gonna just have you sit there, Mary, just like normal, and speak into that mic. Or you can stand if you like.
Awesome, sure. Thank you. So my name is Mary Daniel, and I live at 309 Wisconsin Avenue here in Delafield. And this is something called A Tribute to the Past. It's a publication that was created when the city of Delafield celebrated its 50th anniversary as an incorporated city in 2009. I'm going to take a moment to read the introduction.
Thank you.
50 years ago, in 1959, residents within a 10 square mile area voted in a special election to establish a new entity, the city of Delafield. The community's heritage dates back more than 150 years through Deacon Schuler, Nelson Page Hawks, and Charles Delafield, and other early settlers who were drawn by large pristine lakes and ample farmland. By the turn of the century, the Bourgeois town had become a bustling summer destination with lakeside resorts catering to summer crowds arriving via rail from Madison, Milwaukee, and Chicago. Commerce continued to develop in the downtown district, followed by developments in the 1990s along the interstate corridor. These pages show Delafield from its beginnings until today and celebrate the city's institutions and landmarks and the everyday life of its people. So I'm giving you each one of these. Please take time to read it and share it with your family or friends. The Delafield History Center at Hawks Inn and the Hawks Inn are your source for local history. Photos of buildings that are no longer here, of the fish hatchery and its ponds, photos of the lake and the people who were the founders of our city, and our collection of maps and reference books will continue to teach and preserve history. So, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, who would like to be next? Come on up. Tim?
Hello, my name is Tim Turnock. I live at 304 Fieldstone in Delafield. I'm on the Park and Rec Commission. And my comments tonight are basically on the information on your packet on Bleecker Street. We at the Park and Rec Commission take our job very seriously, just as you do on the council. And my comment is, I would like you to read that information and let us do our job. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Steve, I think there's someone on the screen who, the D person, she had her hand up. She's waving to speak at citizens' comments. Can you see her? Yeah.
Let's have that person go next.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you really well.
All right. All right. So my name is Danielle Henry. I live at 2816 Burries Road. I'm speaking today in favor of the agenda item 9B2 to amend the 2021 adopted budget in order to levy the full amount approved by the referendum and allocate the remaining funds to the city reserves. I'd like to start by saying I fully support the council's strategy of spending restraint and to not unnecessarily increase taxes, even when legally allowed to do so. I actively campaigned for passing this referendum because I believe the council has been making responsible financial decisions to protect the interests of both the city and its citizens. That said, I'm concerned by the council's vote on November 16th to not levy the full amount approved by the current referendum. The 2021 budget is artificially low due to the police department having an unexpected vacancy. This budget is not an accurate representation of the city's annual need. The approximately $60,000 savings we're experiencing in 2021 is exactly that, savings. These funds should be saved, levied, and allocated to the city's excess reserves that have been recently depleted. Considering the recent shooting in Delafield that wounded one of our officers, the recent police incidents in neighboring areas, and the police department also dealing with COVID diagnosis, it would be irresponsible not to anticipate the unexpected overtime costs and other expenses. I understand the city's strategy is to only levy what is immediately needed, but 2021 is looking to be every bit as unpredictable as 2020 has been, and we're likely to see changes to both the city revenue and expenses. I believe the city will likely need this money in the immediate future, even if we don't know exactly what that is yet. I want to be very clear that I'm not suggesting frivolous or unnecessary spending. I'm saying that we should save this money to anticipate additional needs in 2021. Last year, there was no way anyone could anticipate how 2020 would play out, but if these funds are not utilized, there will be no excuse if something happens in 2021 that we're not financially prepared for. The current reserve balance is at its optimal levels, so additional expenses would bring that level below standards. Knowing that there is a high potential for additional expenses in 2021, it's wise to increase that balance while those funds are available. And even if these funds are not needed in 2021, the long-term budget is not yet balanced for sustainability. So I believe there are current potential revenue projects that would allow for the city to just sustain the regular annual budget long-term, but those projects, if they exist, are still in the early stages and by no means guaranteed. Having excess reserves would allow additional time for any new revenue projects to start producing, potentially saving the city from facing another referendum when this one expires. I'm not opposed to utilizing referendums when it is unavoidable due to unforeseen or special circumstances, but in my opinion, another referendum that soon would not be the result of that. Every effort should be made to balance the budget responsibly using the tools you have available now, and that includes the funds that were approved by this referendum. I'd like to also speak briefly in support of agenda item 9A to approve the technology for streaming the meetings online. I had planned to be there in person today, but I'm currently quarantined due to direct COVID exposure, and I was worried the technology might not even allow me to speak today. The current technology makes it difficult to hear and follow along in the meetings virtually, and I believe it's an important investment. My only question or comment would be to ask if this would be more relevant for the capital budget versus the operating budget, if that's what it is. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Danielle. Just so you know, you're on a big screen in the council chamber, so we haven't had that before. You were live and in color, which was nice job by Steve. All right, who would like to be next? Jim, come on up.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jim Ryer. I live at 924 Lake Drive, City of Delafield. And I'm here in my capacity of chairperson of Park and Recreation Commission for the City of Delafield. I have requested to be participating with your agenda at a later time when this matter comes up for consideration and vote, and I requested to be part of it. My request was denied by the mayor, and so I do object to being excluded on behalf of our commission. Now, having said that, I wish to now address the issues related to the current matter before you on Bleecker Street signage. I live right across the street from Bleecker Street. I've been the chair for 3 years with Park and Rec. I've been on Park and Rec for 7 years. Lived in Delafield for 10 years. So I'm uniquely situated where I live and watch and observe the things that go on at Bleecker Street, specifically involving the residents who park there and use the launch primarily. And in 2018 was the only other time I've had to appear in front of a council on these issues. And I did so thinking at that time this matter was done. Motion by Jim Barron was approved unanimously to have the sign affixed to the west wall of the restroom. And for 1 year, if there were going to be issues raised during that time, it certainly could be brought back. 3 years later, I find out for the first time in October that this is now being raised by the Lake Welfare Committee, and now it's before you. And so I submitted, having received that, my first due diligence was to contact the AIS, which for lack of a better term, it's Area Invasive Species Section Coordinators. I've talked to 2 prior ones and have followed the scientific issues related to the species and that particular location. The result was, as you'll see in your packet, I put together a packet after doing my due diligence with the AIS people and specifically identified in exhibits A through G the record of that contact. You'll see that they're virtually, and we should all be proud of this, Bleecker Street Boat Launch is the best landing, according to that section coordinator, in the lake country. For purposes of explanation, she indicated there were no complaints, zero as she calls it, zero complaints about it from the boaters to the inspectors to the public. And I, who've lived there for 10 years, have never received any particular complaints related to it. I know other residents, one who worked as an inspector had no complaints. She has indicated to me no issues with that sign on that Bleecker Street. Same with the next door neighbor. And he and I came up with the idea of putting that sign and the wall because we thought it would address the issues. It's limited in size, and the residents who are there, and the parking is a big issue. It's an amazing experience for me to see all these people who are residents who are not the beneficiaries of lake frontage on their own. They don't have that capacity for whatever reason they are not there. But they use this particular location as their lake frontage. This is how they're able to manage. That's why they take care of their things. We see people cleaning their boats from where I sit across the street on a regular basis during the summer. My better half has commented to me, look at how they take care of all this. Because they're vested. This is not like Lake Nagawaki where you can come in from any place at any time. You're a resident in order to park there. The parking is unique. If you look at the documents I gave you, I believe it was exhibit maybe F, shows how the configuration that they created, and they take up all that space with their trailers and their boats and their cars. So what happens is, you want to encourage people who are invested in the community. You want to support that. You want to have things going well. You can't get a better solution to that than let them do it, and that we encourage that. Not discourage it, not go changing things. It's amazing to me in the days of our pandemic today that we're talking about a sign and compromising people like all of us coming together to discuss this. When we thought that it was a done deal in 2018 and nothing was said. If something was said, we could have fixed it. I want to work with Lake Welfare Committee. We talked to you in 2018 when we were here. We want more transparency and working together from the bottom up, not the top down necessarily, but together. And that's what I'm prepared to do, and I've been prepared to do it every time. Just come to us first. What happened here was the respect that was lost by not talking to us first, and then working it out, and then all of a sudden we have these controversies and conflicts. And so I, who usually am on your side trying to hear public comments, I am now that public comment. I'd like to have this thing work together. So in this situation where I got 3 years of no issues, we've got a great thing going. It's the best situation according to AIS. You know, that sign must be working. 3 years, we haven't had one complaint.
Hey, Jim, it's over 5 minutes. Please try to wrap it up.
Okay. Well, again, I wish to address this issue from the standpoint of, there's a phrase we all are aware of, an adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We are working hard. Tim came up and said the smartest thing you could ever say, because he's always a man of few words, but he said, let us do our work. Let us do our work. It's a land object. We're on the land here. We're taking care of a location of a sign. Not that there's a sign in here. That's been done. The location. And it's there for good reason. And we will be willing to do anything other than the location that is being sought by Lake Welfare. My final note, it doesn't fit. And if it doesn't fit, you must have quit. I'm a lawyer, I couldn't resist.
That was a good one.
I'm a trial lawyer, I couldn't resist. But,
All right, thank you very much,
Thank you very
Jim.
much. Do what's right. That's all I'm asking. Do what's right.
Thank you, Jim.
Alrighty, any other citizens' comments? Any other citizens' comments? All right, nobody online, Steve?
Nope.
Okay, great. Citizens' comments are now closed. All right, we will move to 6A, the consent agenda.
Also move.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions passes. All right, 7A, Delaware Water Pollution Control Commission. Mr. Eicher?
I'll just state the plant upgrade to get rid of chemicals, start using more UV is continuing as scheduled, and we should be completely transformed by early next year.
Great, thank you. All right, we're moving on to B, Lake Country Fire and Rescue Board. Mr. Grimmer?
Consolidation continues with the addition of additional communities. with the fire chief and his leadership team. Revenues continue to exceed budget through October of 2020, and we anticipate no change in that trend line. And expenses are well within budgeted amounts. So very financially stable for 2020.
Good news indeed, thank you. All right, we'll move on to C, Lake Country Fire and Rescue Commission. There was a meeting on December 2nd. The minutes have not been published, but I got a summary from Sandy. The commission met the 6 candidates for the open positions beginning in 2021 and approved all candidates. Job descriptions were reviewed and approved with the exception of 2 that need a few additional updates and will be reviewed at the next meeting in January. The commission also approved the staffs selected to complete the organizational chart as presented by the chief for the consolidating of these positions with all departments for the transition to one department. Some of these positions are part-time. I don't really, other than our involvement, any questions on that or anything? Basically, they're just consolidating, or they're taking all the existing people that existed in the different departments and putting it under one umbrella. And I believe it's a factual statement to say they're repositioning as opposed to adding and filling the gaps where there were gaps. All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to D, Park and Rec Commission. Mr. Grimmer.
Park and Rec met on the 23rd. We appointed a work group of Mary Daniels, Susie Farmer, Kelly Yogurt, who's the Heartland Park and Rec director. And their initiative is to work on zero-cost ways to promote the Heartland Rec program. I think they're doing a great job so far. Where's Mary? Also, much debate and discussion on the St. John's Bay boat dock, the Bleecker Street boat launch, which we will get to later, and discussion on the jurisdiction of Park and Rec versus Lake Welfare Committee. Next meeting on December 28th. 5-year master parks plan, still working on, should have some resolution within the next several weeks.
Great, thank you much. All right, we'll move on to E, Planning Commission. Mr. Eicher?
All right, briefly, we had a short agenda on our November 18th meeting. One item of interest is that American Legion, who had an expansion to their building and facility approved preliminarily, I think, a couple years ago, came back with some final drawings in that, and it looks like it might be moving forward. I'm sure it's pending funding. So that's one issue that's not on our agenda. The other ones are, these 2 are kind of housekeeping. I think the applicant's here, but this is really formalizing both of these items on item E, 2A and 2B are to formalize something that's kind of been in place, and it's a parking lot and then lighting and then their conditional use permit to actually use it as they have been. And so they came in front of the Plan Commission for the last couple meetings, and we approved both of these items for Grace Church. And so I'll just make a motion to approve items 2A. Well, let's do individually. 2A, to approve a certified survey map to combine the 2 adjacent lots to accommodate the expansion of a parking lot occupied by Grace Church.
I'll second it.
All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say, oh.
Was there discussion? I didn't have a chance to check out the lot physically. I noticed that all of the lots adjacent have some kind of a basin, catch basin for the water runoff. I think this is the only lot that doesn't. And if we're adding a parking lot that big, was there any considerations for that?
I don't believe it's an additional parking lot. Would you like to come up, sir, and just explain?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Norm Hanson, 1148 Quinlan Drive, Pewaukee, Wisconsin. I'm representing William and Susan Eisler of Eisler Investments. The parking lot, working with staff, was that it already exists, and the difference in the impervious area of what's there, and there's going to be asphalt that's removed. So actually, we're reducing the impervious area of this lot where the new parking lot will be located.
Good. And I know we had a good discussion about landscaping and what trees
Right,
and
and we're-
lighting and stuff. I think we
Yeah,
dotted
the
all the
lighting,
i's.
the lighting issue, working with Revere Electric as far as getting the photometrics and the information that staff requires for the approval of the lighting plan.
Yeah, the landscaping is going to improve its aesthetics quite a bit.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
And I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit update for the same property, Grace Church. And this is just formalizing the fact that these lots are together and it's an established use, and this is something we just need to do.
Second.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, you said conditional use permit?
Yes, it's to update the existing.
Does it require a public hearing?
We had one. Yes, it was.
Okay.
We had the public hearing at the November 18th meeting.
All right, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Great. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. And we do have a plan commission meeting, I believe, it's the week before the week of Thanksgiving. I don't know, it's
Christmas?
the 30th,
Oh,
December
30th.
30th.
Okay.
So those people that say we never work close to holidays, we are working close to holidays. And that's it for plan commission.
Great, thank you. Okay, number 8, mayor's report. No report. Number 9, new business. A, discussion as requested by Alderperson Kaysen regarding poor sound quality amplification when participating remotely during the hybrid public meeting held in person and via Zoom, and the confusion it created for him when he intended to vote against the 2021 budget with a lower levy than allowed by the referendum. I believe that's all yours.
Thank you very much.
Make sure your mic's on, hon.
Thank you very much. The short paragraph there pretty much summarizes, it was extremely difficult to try and follow the conversation. I could hear some voices much better than others, and it was really, in fact, I didn't even hear one of the motions, and that's why I was caught off guard. I apologize for interjecting so frequently last meeting, but I was just trying to follow along. I don't know what the solution would be for the sound quality and amplification. I'll leave that to others. If we can resolve it without spending any funds, just simply by rearranging something, fantastic. So exactly. So, I'm not looking to spend money, but just address that issue. I do have concern about the open meetings law, just to make sure that everybody that's trying to participate in the meeting is actually able to do just that. So I know I was having a very difficult time. So if needed, I'd like to just move up the consideration from next year's capital improvement.
So I think that's a different agenda item.
Yes. So had I understood exactly where we were, I would have voted against the last budget, just in favor of adopting the full amount as authorized by the referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 9B, resolution number 2020-15, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Delafield, Wisconsin, amending the 2021 budget based on the following request. We'll handle these one at a time, so let's go with number 1. Request by Alderperson Kaysen to amend the 2021 capital budget approved on November 16th in order to fund audio-visual equipment upgrades in the council chambers in 2021 instead of 2022 as currently scheduled. That one's yours as well.
Thank you very much. In looking forward into the next few years, there was, I believe it was $38,000 that was allocated for upgrades to this room. I do not know specifically what those upgrades all included. I was just asking to bring that forward in case we needed some of those funds to address these issues, that it could be addressed this year. So at this point, do I need to make a formal amendment to bring that forward?
So the budget amendment is done by a single resolution, so we should really talk about both of these items, and then the council needs to decide if they want to pass a resolution with both the items, one of the items, or not pass a resolution at all.
Okay?
Oh, pressure's
Well, I'll comment on the technology and just the Zoom. I think,
Tim, since we're gonna address them together, let me just read what item 2 is so the people in the audience know what the topic is. 2B, request by Alderperson Kaysen and Valady to amend the 2021 budget approved on November 16th in order to levy the full amount approved by the referendum and allocating the remaining balance to the city reserves. Sorry, go ahead.
As was stated in public comments this evening, citizen comments, I'm concerned about the fund balance being restored. I ideally would like to see growth in the city be able to accommodate the budget for the city in the future. I really don't want to have to make any cuts, and I'd like to have that growth accommodate, I would like to have the growth of the city accommodate our current budget, and I believe there's got to be definitely some work has got to be done to make sure that we can achieve a balanced budget. But I would just like to make sure that we've got the reserves, because it's diminished to a point that I would be concerned. So that's why I would propose taking a look at allocating all of those reserves, all of the potential referendum levy towards the reserves.
So with those excesses, you would then, it would be contributed to the fund balance, and if unused, it would, you're suggesting that it could, then it would build the fund balance up over the next several years?
Correct.
And then at the end of those several years, when we have excess fund balance, what do we do with that excess fund balance? That is that then used to offset levy increases? And I'm not gonna let you answer, because that's part of my concern, is that that's kind of the problem we got into in the first place, as Tom mentioned in his memo, is we use these fund balances to offset the levy and not tax to the max. So I guess that would be a consideration, a challenge if we were to. My other concern is obviously for taxing the people's money that we do not need.
Jackie, did you have a comment? Because your co-spots are on this.
I actually have a little bit more to add chuck into this discussion. One of the things that I didn't have written there that has come to mind, and I think it's very timely, is the added expenses brought onto our police department through, we had several officers out with COVID exposure. We had the emergency situation on November 6th, and moving forward, there's been a lot of, I mean, I don't know for a fact because I'm not on the police commission, but as we're looking at this fund balance, as we're talking about, funding the costs in the city, along with adding to the city reserves, I'm concerned that we meet our expenses right here, right now, in 2020 that were completely unanticipated, if at all possible. Just in understanding that there's been a lot that has come down just this fall, and especially in the last few weeks, that are gonna, I'm gonna guess, challenge our police budget, to say the least. So if we're looking at this budget and making some adjustments, it might be a consideration that we bring on board.
So I'm going to chime in here. I was an advocate of this referendum, and I thought it was important that we have the citizens be involved and participate and decide whether they wanted to maintain the services that they were getting and pass the referendum, or if they were willing to take cuts. And the way I sold it when I talked to people was that we were going to spend as much money as we needed to balance the budget. So for me to personally support the idea of adding extra taxes for basically a cushion that really only buys us several months if we were to do it over the 5-year period. That would be against how I promoted personally the referendum and my belief in how we tax the citizens of Delafield. I think it's much more important that we focus on being proactive and working over the next 5 years to grow our way out of this, as opposed to figuring out ways how we take more tax dollars from citizens and put it in the bank to protect ourselves from something. I'd rather see us grow it out of this so we don't have to increase, or increase our balance, nest egg to protect it. So
No, I totally get you, and I agree with you. I would rather increase businesses. That's why I'm hoping 705 is going to be built there at some point in the not too distant future, and some of the other things I know that are coming down the way. I also know that we have expenses. This is not a savings plan. This is a real expense. I'm guessing it didn't come free to have what has transpired with COVID absences and overtimes covering. I'm just guessing that's going to be a bill that's going to exceed the police budget. We're balancing our city budget on the premise that we are down an officer. And the whole idea of backing the badge and supporting our police and supporting the city employees, and the citizens did speak in support of that, was that we would have a full force, which we don't have. And that's how we're balancing our budget right now, is that half a year without, and that's my understanding. So I was actually approached by citizens. This did not have a genesis in my head. I sold the referendum on, basically the way you just phrased it, Kent. So my concern is coming out of citizen concern, and that's why I brought it up.
I think the concerns that you and Phil bring up are very reasonable. I understand where they're coming from. But I would also, I would echo what the mayor had to say, but also add, we do have a fund balance out there at 20%, at 21% actually. And I understand our need to keep it at 20% for our great bond ratings. But we have a cushion there of 21 point, I don't know, but it's roughly $60,000. So in regular times, if we needed a cushion, we could access that fund balance. We could temporarily dip below that 20% magic number, only to raise it up the subsequent next year by taxing to the limit. So I appreciate where the concern comes from. It's reasonable, but I think with the 705 development, the fund balance, other developments in the city, I think we're on terra firma. I think we're on firm footing.
Yeah, I'll just state that, I did very little. I didn't sell the referendum to anybody. I answered very direct questions with direct answers, and the facts were, I think, concisely and accurately portrayed on our website and in the flyers that people handed out, and in the language of the referendum. The purpose of it was to maintain the services at their existing level. And some time ago, within this past year and a half, we created the financial policy that 20% reserve was our policy for the city, and we're above that. The purpose of adding $60,000 or $54,000, whatever this is, on top of that is not in keeping with the language of the referendum that people voted for.
Yeah, I get you. I just want to make sure we can meet those expenses. That's all. That's my concern.
Well, and I think, I'm like I have since I've been on the council, I'm entrusting the budgets that were submitted as being pretty good anticipation of what's going on next year. And one amendment I made was, I thought we overshot what our revenue might be for the fish hatchery. So we added $10,000 onto that. And that's the time to do this. It's not to say, well, let's just arbitrarily pick, because this number isn't based on anything other than it's the most we can charge. I didn't see any backing to anything other than saying we can't go higher than that. If there would have been a number of $37,000 in an itemized list, like we go through our budget, I'd be, yeah, I'll back it, new armor for the police, or whatever, however you wanted to itemize it. This isn't itemized, this is, let's jack it to the max, and, we did have.
That's a little disingenuous, come on.
Okay,
That's a little rude.
let's charge as much as we can.
Can I ask that?
And then just say,
Collect?
and, what?
Collect as opposed to charge, because I believe we've.
I get a bill, it's a charge. I mean, that's how I get my tax, it's a bill,
Okay.
it's a tax bill. So I'm just saying that we don't have anything other than a what-if scenario here, and that's what the reserve is for. We can go to 18% if we've got this $100,000 unforeseen expense for next year, and I think we've anticipated that pretty well in the past, and we've managed really well. And I think it damages our credibility, not with just the 58% of the people that voted for the referendum, but more so with the 42% of the people that said, don't raise my taxes a nickel. And we raised them as much as we needed to do what the referendum said. And that's where I'm banking my vote on this, to say that I don't think we should change our budget, because we're doing what we said we'd do when they voted yes.
I'm thinking we may have to go back in 5 years, and I think our ability to win another referendum will be enhanced by being good stewards now. And I too campaigned for it, and I said, and our goal was to maybe not use it all. And I was pleased because we had a favorable thing, cost thing. I know time-wise it's not as good, but in the police department. So I think we earn credibility, and if we end up not physically growing as fast as we thought we would, in 5 years we may be short again. And then we go back with the exact same question, saying we're not physically growing to cover the inflation, and we'll ask again. And I think we're establishing a pattern here where things are winning for good reasons. And we've had two of them like that. I'm not a fan of the referendums, but it's what the law is, and we're handling it correctly. So I hate to throw water on this, but I'm sure that the revenue level has already been certified somewhere. I don't know how you could even change it at this date.
No, we still do have time to change it.
So I know people are waiting for their bills.
And
Yeah.
I'll add that I'm not personally impressed. I mean, we have very strict legal guidelines for our investment options as a city. And if we look at our treasurer's report, I think just about everybody in the audience is doing better than what we're doing on that $60,000 that we'd be billing or we'd be collecting and banking. I mean, we're getting 0.3% in a CD, and I take advantage of what's going on in the world right now as far as letting the people grow their money, and I think that's a better use of the 60 grand that's in their hands than ours.
I would also add that, I understand that we can be very pessimistic about 2020 and about everything that's happened in 2020 locally, even with our police incidents and COVID, but I think 2021, I'm optimistic about 2021. I think that with either herd immunity or vaccinations, that there will be unbridled consumerism in Delafield. There will be people in hotels, and animal spirits will be released. And I'm very hopeful. Yes, I've been waiting all year.
Sounds like a theme for the block party.
Exactly. And people are going to come, and promotion tourism is, and they're going to say, wow. And so I do want to say that. I know it's easy to be pessimistic, and I'm not saying you are. You're being realistic, and I appreciate that. But I'm confident about 2021.
Thank you. I appreciate your optimism there, man. And
This is why these discussions are good. When you have unanimous votes with no comment, then we're not doing our job. Because there are people in town that there's almost three philosophies out there, and there's nothing wrong with the folks that say it's just their view that we should be more comfortable raise the money, but I think there's a majority that have heard it that we be conservative. And I think that's the majority on this council, but does not mean the minority opinion doesn't have some value in this discussion, so people understand where we stand.
Absolutely.
And one of the largest reasons I brought this up was to be conservative, to be prepared should something come up. Now, granted, the $56,000, that still could be levied as not that much, but given the fact that Wisconsin just announced today it's probably going to have a $2 billion shortfall, given the fact, the year isn't quite over yet, true, I hope to, to share in your optimism there. Well, I do, but I really hope it does come out that way. Just want to make sure that we're prepared, because this is probably the most uncertain year that the city's ever seen.
Okay. Does anybody like to make a motion, or do you want to hear any information from Tom?
Well, I guess I had a question on it. So with the 20% fund balance, we have 21%, whatever. If we do the max, which is 56,000, what it sounds like, and the revenue and the expenses come in this coming year exactly the way we planned, and that those funds go to the reserve balance, what would our reserve balance be from a percent perspective?
If you add $56,000, I mean,
You add about 1%, 1.5%, right, Tom? If you've got a 60, I'll let you do the math.
You don't want to do math
it
live?
would put us into the 23 to 24% area.
So pretty significant. And I guess my other question would be, does this impact, to your comment about future referendums, the levy ability for us to raise, or well, I guess raise would be the scenario where the levy would take place in the future if we do or don't, exercise the right to the full extent here? Are we, it's in theory, handicapping ourselves like we did in the past, where we didn't take advantage of?
No, not in this case.
Okay.
The next 4 years, we'll still have access to the full $257,000 approved by referendum.
And it doesn't decrease our base level amount based on the state
No,
levy limits?
so throughout all 5 years of this referendum, the base automatically resets every year to take away the amount that was included by referendum, and then you got to re-add the 257 or however much of that you intend to use for that year. Does that make sense?
And any growth we get goes over and above all that.
Okay.
The only thing I just want to mention is if the council is intended on making a motion for one or both of these budget amendments, it does require a supermajority where 5 affirmative votes are needed to pass a budget amendment.
Okay, real quick while we're on commentary here. On the technology front, now Steve looks like he's done a lot of improvements here. I mean, we could hear the audience great online. Is there feedback from the people online? I mean, last meeting, as Phil mentioned, really bad. Has that been improved? Do we know with your improvements here?
Yeah, part of the problem was my laptop is what's picking up the sound. I was over on the other side. We were kind of relying on that speaker back there. It really wasn't working for anybody who was speaking on this side of the room. It wasn't coming over the speaker all that well. It's kind of pointed off in a different direction. I could hear this side of the room really well, and so could everyone on the audience. I think you could hear Tom and Kent. It was just really on this side of the room, which is why I'm centrally located for this meeting. Mike and I are, the AV guy, are researching some different solutions to, perhaps put out a microphone over here or something to that effect. We're different solutions. The original technology or the budget for the AV equipment was actually not really meant to improve for virtual setting. It was more or less to upgrade the cameras, replace these with gooseneck mics, something to that effect. Obviously, I didn't have time to. I just got here in September, so I didn't get to see the budget, and so I pulled it out. because I needed time to verify if that amount was correct. But that was really never intended to beef up anything for a virtual setting or a conference room setting, if that's what the I was for.
Well, I would concur with Phil, it was very hard to hear.
Oh yeah, you were on there too.
I was there. But from what I'm hearing, you and Mike are working together to look at options and look what's feasible. God willing, we'll be through this by March, maybe April, and back to regular order soon after. And the equipment allocation capital CapEx spending for 2022 wouldn't help this situation either, regardless. Is that what you're saying, Steve?
The original
Because it
amount-
goes for cameras and mics.
Right, that was, the original budget was, I think it was around 38,000.
Yeah, 38,000 is for cameras, microphones, and a piece of equipment allowed live streaming as well.
Yeah,
Big expensive one for that back room.
Which we actually took care of recently we just purchased a mixer for, it was like $1,600 with existing funds. So the streaming to YouTube part will be taken care of. But the rest of the budget was really for the upgrades in the cameras. Cameras are right now at 480p
Wow.
or I think 480p max. New cameras are 1080.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of stuff that the original technology was. That being said, we, even going forward, even if it's a non-pandemic time, a lot of municipalities, a lot of businesses have had some mix of virtual setting, and it would be nice to somehow mix this in going forward. Schools have done it and probably will be doing it in the future. No more snow days. Sorry to say.
No, actually, Waukesha's keeping our snow days.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty pumped.
So there is money, I believe, in the referendum or in the resolution. How much did you include for that?
$38,000.
The $38,000. So the $38,000 was based on the original quote that was given to the previous clerk and Tom for that equipment that we mentioned. I don't know any dollar amounts for any equipment because I haven't had time. I think Tom and I need to just go through, and Mike, and we want to see what is reasonable, what is sustainable for us in the future. So I don't know if 38,000 is a good amount, a bad amount. But that's what the dollar amount was originally based on.
So to make this change, it's a 2/3 vote anyway. And if it's a capital item, I think it's almost, we could probably do it in March by 2/3 vote and add it to the,
Yep, we would just need to do it before we do our borrowing.
yeah, which is usually in June or May.
April, May, yep, June.
So my thought is that this is a good discussion to just see if you can get some good quotes and come with a plan, and maybe you'll get the super majority to say, let's change the budget, but we can do it in a couple months. And it's a capital budget, not a expenditure budget.
Well, the question is, Phil had put this forward as moving the whole project up a year. Are we talking about the whole project, including cameras and microphones, or are we just looking for a hybrid meeting solution for now?
And that, to me, that's all we need right now.
Yep. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we can research that, and maybe we come back with a solution that's just a few $1,000s, and come back to the council in January, February, or March for that amendment.
Yeah, agreed. I do empathize with Phil and Matt, and especially going through a budget. There's some crosstalk and distance, and the mics weren't set up right. Knowing that this was all going to happen with what notice we had. So I think it's extremely important that everyone's in the loop on those types of decisions and that they understand what's going on. And I do know how people were handicapped for that. So I mean, if there's something that can address that short term, I'd like to say do it, and we'll backfill it with what we know is the right thing to do, right? So I'm interested in knowing what kind of solutions we can implement quickly to make sure that everyone at home and who's vital to the voting process gets the appropriate inputs. And so, yeah, should be something that we can do. I'd say use the buffer we included in the budget, but I know that we whittled all that away, right? Because that's what we're supposed to do, so let's try and do it and add it, right?
All right, is there anybody that would like to make a motion on item B1 or 2? Otherwise, I'm planning on moving to C.
Do those items have to be, it's one resolution, so.
One resolution, and a council member could say, I propose the resolution with one included, not the other, or whatever they want to do.
I would propose to adopt a resolution with item A in it to levy to the full referendum limit.
We say A.
I'm sorry, B, number 1. Okay. Sorry, I'm not on the actual.
So increase additional general property tax for the referendum, $56,098.
Correct, thank you.
All right, is there a second? Hearing none, the motion fails for a second. Is there another motion? All right, I'm going to move on to C without objection. C, consider...
I didn't say anything.
Oh, sorry, I thought I heard something. Oh, it was the mic, okay. C, consideration of relocation of the Bleecker Street Clean Boat, Clean Water sign station. So let's see here, maybe Phil, you can speak on behalf of the Lake Welfare Committee briefly, and Matt, you could do the same for Park and Rec, and then maybe Tom can chime in on his perspective as Public Works Director, and then we can have a discussion. Does that work for everyone?
Sure.
Sounds good.
The history with the Lake Welfare Committee is, this was, as I walked onto the Lake Welfare Committee, I believe our first meeting was in June. There was an item on the agenda to look at the location of a sign. It was pushed back a month, and the next month in July it was pushed back a month, and again it was pushed back another month. I think asking Tom, can you fill me in on this? What's going on? And in retrospect, you know, it certainly I could have had I known more about the situation, taken it to the parks, but the question really was about the placement of the sign, and the people on Lake Welfare Committee believe that with the relocation of the sign, it's in a more effective spot, was their request. If it's as the boats are being backed up or pulled out, the boats would be more effectively, more efficiently cleaned. There's several invasive species, one which we do not have yet, but it's in Pine Lake, it's in, I believe, Pewaukee Lake, it's in the Muskego Lakes, that we're really trying to...
Starry stonewort, knock on wood.
So, yep. So yeah, it's just, it was showed up about 6 years ago, and we're just trying to keep it out of our lake here. So that was the suggestion from the Lake Welfare Committee. They thought it would be in a much more visible spot and more used spot.
When I first joined the council, this won't be a long story, but I always like to remember Al Zietlow, and he took me aside, I swear to God, on my first council meeting, and he talked my ear off for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes on starry stonewort. I swear to God, hey, this is, you gotta, you know, we vote lake and non-lake districts. I just think that was funny. In any case, you know, Park and Rec did their due diligence 3 years ago on this. You heard Jim and Tim voice their concerns about the process. It was discussed, debated, and decided that this signage should go at where it exists now. And since 2018, it's remained there. It's been 3 summers. Per Jim's testimony and the exhibits that he's provided, there has been no consequential changes, no complaints from boaters, inspectors of the public. There's noted, you know, a responsible citizenry is doing their job. with the sign where it is. I think if you also look at the exhibits that Jim's provided, you can see the abundance of signage at this park. It's substantial. So, you know, it's not Delafield if we're not talking about signs, and the sign wars. You know, it's been too long, so we got to get signs back on the agenda. But I really think this is, I think it's fine where it is. I don't see what necessitates changing it. And Park and Rec, the committee that I serve on, you know, has voted in the affirmative on this ad infinitum.
I have a question.
Right.
Why did Lake Welfare decide to jump in to the sign? There isn't a problem really, and it's a sign in what is a park. So why did the Lake Welfare not talk to the park people? Because it feels like it was a really, and I know you're new, so you know, you get to get the slings and arrows, but it feels like it was sort of usurping their authority, you know, and it could have been something that was discussed. And also, I'd like to point out, I don't think you can put a sign on the west side. That's private property. I'm on that launch 2-3 times a week, so I know it on a stupid level.
Just real quickly, the minutes are mistaken, and they're not talking about the west side of
Oh,
Bleecker
okay.
Street.
Well,
They
how
are
am I supposed to know?
I know. I was confused for a couple weeks too. They are talking about the east side and that grassy swale area in between Bleecker Street and the parking
You
lot.
mean where people park?
No, it's going to be right at the top of the slope of the swale. There's a swale along Bleecker Street,
Yeah.
so almost all the way to the pavement, immediately adjacent to a utility pole and a swale. So it's not. I don't think it'll have any negligible impact on parking.
It does feel like a solution to a problem that doesn't exist.
My sense from being on the committee was just personally sounded like the people that were on the committee that were the voters thought it'd be more effective over there. I'm sorry, I can't add more than that.
And I'll chime in to try to be helpful.
Yeah.
You know, it's about protecting the lake. It's about doing everything that's reasonable and customary to make sure that we don't allow invasive species into our lake that can spread, starry stonewort being one that there is no known product to eradicate that plant.
I'm aware.
Yep, so it's a plant of very high concern. Nor do we want to have any of the invasives that we have taken out of the lake and spread to other lakes, right? Trying to be good stewards of not only Lake Nagawicca, but all lakes.
And yeah, I mean, I get you totally.
And by the Lake Welfare Committee requesting this sign where it is, they've asked for it to be for a couple of years now, it will maximize the opportunity for boaters to follow the guidelines. It's an active sign, it has tools on it that are used, so it's not an informational sign, it's an active sign.
No, I understand that. I understand all of that. I think the process is where I have the problem, and I'm a very process-driven person. I'm probably the biggest environmentalist and tree hugger around here, but it would be like the Parks and Rec people moving the buoys in the lake because the boaters want to have access to whatever. It's just usurping who should be making this decision. So I feel like there's the problem I have with this proposal. It shouldn't be coming from Lake Welfare. Lake Welfare should process it with the Parks and Rec.
So Lake Welfare's charge is to protect Lake Nagawicca. And that's on the lake, that's off the lake, that's runoff from commercial properties, that's runoff from residential properties, and it includes any park. And in this case, it would be Bleecker. So to be against trying to maximize the protection of the lake, irregardless of where the sign is, in this case, it's a park, it's right next to the launch, it's where it would most be used. It's clearly the Lake Welfare's responsibility to promote and advocate to do that.
I completely agree that the Lake Welfare should be working hard to protect. I have a huge problem with the process by, I've never seen such hard feelings between the two committees in my 8 years on the council.
That's why it's here, so we
No,
can
that's-
decide and put
so
this to bed one way or the other.
Yeah, Jackie, that's a really good point. And, but, you know, I get it, and I don't quite understand how there's a lack of communication. They're throwing this over the wall to each other, and they should sit down together, and I think we can afford them that opportunity to do so. And I think when Jim made the motion and I seconded it a couple of years ago to put the sign where it was proposed, I think that's what we thought might happen. So I think we should allow that to happen. I don't think we need to put this to the top of anyone's list to spend labor and resources on it right now. But I do agree with the sentiment from Lake Welfare. As far as preventing a new invasive species, you should have to trip over an obstacle to make sure you remember not to do it. But I think based on this launch and how it's used and how it's licensed, I mean, these are permits that are given to specific few people that sign up and pay for them.
That's a really good point.
There's an opportunity right there when they register and pay their fee to get that information in the mail and to have those early spring, and the volunteers, I know there's a lot of volunteers involved with this, tap these people and make sure that, have you seen this before? And, make sure that they cover everyone when they go in. And I know that goes on. The material's there, the signs are big, they're obvious. I'd hate to see them moved based on a turf war between two committees that are spending lots of their own time and sweat equity into doing wonderful things for the city. I'd like to see them come up with something more creative than worrying about where the sign is. And not that it's a small issue. I get both sides. There's maybe optimal and suboptimal, but effective is a different issue, and I think it's an effective place right now.
Well, my concern there is that they've had over 2.5 years to do this, and they're not. If the council makes a recommendation one way or the other tonight, it's done. Nobody has to work on it, for the foreseeable future would be my suggestion.
Hopefully they won't then. I mean, it seems like negative energy.
I will say one of the issues that came up was it was a 1-year determination to put the sign here, and potentially could have been revisited, which is, I think, is why it came back up
Yeah,
again.
makes sense.
So,
Wayne, did you have something?
Go ahead, Wayne. You got your hand up.
I move to leave the sign for invasive species where it is now.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right. Okay, we will move on to D, ordinance number 773. Ordinance to repeal and recreate section 2-239H of the Delafield Municipal Code relating to the destruction and preservation of public.
Yeah, I didn't
Records,
understand that.
I believe.
Did I miss? Public records.
Records.
Yes,
There's a
it
word
should say
missing.
records.
Yeah, if you go into the additional papers, it was in there. But yeah, on the agenda.
No offense
So
to
you
the
need-
public.
You need a motion, I'll move.
I'll second.
I'll second. Thanks for doing the homework on this. It makes a lot of sense.
Okay, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Great. On to E, voucher list.
Also move.
I'll second. I have one question. Tom already answered it and kind of embarrassed me that it's been on here forever, but to clarify, I saw an invoice here for a lease for $13,642 to an individual name. And I guess I'll let Tom, I asked him what it was about before the meeting. I thought I'd just share it with everyone else and anyone else wants to know.
When the city, back before I started working for the city, when the city acquired a piece of property on Kettle Court East to locate a water booster station for our water utility and also some cell towers that the city receives lease payments for, part of that agreement included that in perpetuity, the lease payments that we receive from cell tower providers, we have to pass on half of that to the developer of the development. And so that's what that is. And if you look back at old records, we've been making that payment for over 20 years now.
I finally got it after 11. So.
Might have asked it before and just forgot the answer.
Yeah, I know I didn't ask it before. I'll tell you that.
Okay. Number 10, reports.
All those in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. 10A, Administrator, Negawicka Road Project Update.
Yeah, just a real quick update on the Negawicka Road path. The project is substantially complete. The paving of the second half of the project, the northern portion of the project, took place the Monday before Thanksgiving. Most of the restoration has already been completed. There's some minor punch list work left to be done. There are some pavement surface imperfections that the contractor is aware of. Some places holding minor puddles, and they're going to be doing some infrared patching where they heat up the asphalt and they can reform it, add some additional asphalt to get rid of the depression. So that project is substantially complete, and we would expect minor restoration to happen in the spring and then project closeout. The other thing that I wanted to mention is even though the Oakwood Drive Path project got put off from 2021 to 2022, we will be having a public informational meeting to get some early input from the residents on the design for that. And that meeting is going to take place in this room on Thursday, December 17th. It'll be open house format. People can stop in anytime between 5:30 and 7 o'clock.
Great, thank you. B, Clerk.
Sorry. In your packet, I have your a memo. I did want to let everyone know that I have the candidate papers out. Some of you already know, obviously. I've gotten work. The other thing I wanted to share with you is in researching the website, I did discover that we should have been using what's called an agenda center in there, and it's a host. I don't know if any of you, it's a host location where you can put your minutes, your agendas and packets, and the link for the YouTube videos all in one location. I did provide a link in my memo. Not sure if you had a chance to check it out, but I did want to just quick show it to you. Hang on one second. Here we go. Let me just share it so Danielle can see it too. All right, so this is something that the city is probably should have been using all this time. I was checking out some other municipalities who use Civic Plus. It's the website company that we use, and everyone seems to be using this. So I'm going to start using this. In my memo, I said I had a target date of December 30th or earlier. I'm actually ready to go. I got all of 2020 agendas, minutes, and for Plan Commission and Common Council, I got the YouTube links up. And then for Plan Commission and Common Council, I have all of 2019. I think that should be sufficient to at least get started. I'm going to start loading things, previous year's information in. I'm not going to deactivate the old archive center until I'm complete, because that looks like it goes back pretty far. So I'll try to get as much in as possible. It really didn't take a whole lot to get this stuff in. But I do want to switch over this link up here pretty soon, and in enough time for the next council packet. Doing this really saves a lot of time on our on the office staff, because it's very simple. There's a whole process. You just upload the stuff and it automatically brings up the notification system. So people, I know there's some residents out there who are pushing the notify me, and I appreciate that because I'd like to start doing that too. But instead of signing up for the archive center stuff, they'll go down to the agenda center. So once I get all of this going and this deactivated, most of this will go away. The archive center is really meant for other items, like if we want to put up past newsletters or just some other information, zoning code maps, and we can use this for a whole slew of documents that we have, but it's not really meant for the agendas and minutes. The agenda center, oh, now I got it, actually does archiving as well. So you can do the same thing here, but just in a different location. So if you do need to look at minutes from long ago and you want to search a specific word, you can do that right in here. Just to let you know, you can go through and select different categories.
Oh, nice.
Turn off which committee you want to actually view. I've already used this for the Lake Welfare Committee. They got a meeting coming up. So they got the notifications out. So just want to let everyone know that this is out there. I'm deploying it. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know.
I do have one question.
All right.
And first I have to say before that is, thank you for doing this. Being a newbie to the council, I have been looking at a lot of other cities and noticed that they were using this. And it is a pretty common platform. And it's just a one-stop shop. I mean, it's really so much more convenient. You've got it all right there. I'd also like to say thank you, Steve. My Lake Welfare Committee meeting isn't until next Wednesday, but lo and behold, there's already an agenda out for it. And I appreciate that because I think that really helps with public transparency. We can actually see what's coming up. So I think that's really important for the community. My question was, will the dates always be in order?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
So there's an agenda, that agenda could change before the meeting because there's a certain time and date, so it'll be last minute. I do like having the agendas earlier, but then I hope people are aware that things can drop in at the last minute.
Actually, I thanked Mike for Lake Welfare. They actually had an amendment that I did today.
Okay.
And this is actually a nice way of doing it because I got to test out the new system, and right on here it says amended, December 7th. So the actual document says amended too, but this will also show.
Because that's the only thing that you might get people saying, well, I looked a week out and it wasn't on there.
Yep, that's why there's post dates. That's when the agendas are posted, and then if they're amended, it would say amended.
Yeah, but I think especially early on some of the things, we know a month ahead what's going to be on the agendas.
Really
And
helpful.
if people are signed up through the Notify Me system on this, my protocol is going to be if there's any amendments, to send out a notification because it's all part of that process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Well done.
Awesome.
Welcome.
So I just have a quick question. So if an agenda is posted on here for any committee or commission, it's an automatic process, the people that signed up for that through Notify Me will get a copy of that?
It's
A link?
It's part of the process. They'll still get a Notify Me, so we upload it, and then when we hit save, I wanted to show you one other thing, but when we hit save and send, then the Notify Me pops up right away.
To the internal person who then pushes it, is that?
Correct.
Okay.
But people still have to sign up themselves.
Right,
to
right,
get-
I got that. I'm just, so people that are signed up for Notify Me, basically the process is not changing for them.
Correct, and I imported all of the exact same subscriber lists from the original Notify Me platform we're using into here.
Okay, got it.
I did want.
Just so I'm completely clear, so let's say you post the agenda a week before, and then the Friday before the meeting, 3 days later, you amend it. Part of the process is the clerk or whoever is doing it will make the amendment, and then they'll hit the Notify Me, which pushes it to the Notify Me system so that people get a notice that there's been an amendment made. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you can put whatever message you want in there. So right now I have a new agenda and amended agenda packet.
Got it.
One quick other thing I wanted to show you, another thing we could have been using all this time, but we didn't, is in the, also part of the process, is adding it to the calendar. So like Lake Welfare Committee. This is the calendar on the website. You can actually download the agenda right there.
Oh, sweet.
So it's right there.
Yeah, those were dead links, I think, before, if they even were there.
Yeah, I don't think they were, because you'd have to go into the calendar thing and add the link, but this is all part of the process and automatic. All right.
It's good stuff. Yeah, thanks for doing it. I know it was a heavy lift to move to this website when we did it, and that was a huge improvement. And some of these types of things, appreciate your keen eye to clean this up.
Sure.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Can I just ask something?
No, not
No, sorry.
now. Not now.
Sorry, I'm going to say it anyway.
Well, Susie, this isn't the time.
Know what's new.
It'll say
I would
amendment.
encourage you to talk to the clerk.
Know what's new.
I would talk to the clerk after, please. Okay. All right, 10C, treasurer. Any report, Tom? Okay, I would just refer you to the comments there, just to the packet of the October 2020 treasurer's report. D, council requests for future agenda items. Hearing none. All right, we'll go on to 11, correspondence. I'll refer you to those, and we are now adjourned, seeing no further business at 8:35. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Tom, I saw that waste management purchase there. We're not going to lose our up to drive, are we?